10 random magic cards rated, day number 85. Happy hump day, everybody. We're recording on a Wednesday. I'm not trying to say it's some kind of weird day where you do weird stuff. It's just Wednesday. What's the first card of the day? Thousand Moon Smithy. You guys, I love this card. This 4 mana, 2 and 2 white for a legendary artifact. When it ETBs, create a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts and or creatures that you control. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may tap 5 untapped artifacts and or creatures you control. If you do, transform Thousand Moon Smithy. Transform it into Barracks of the Thousand. This is a legendary artifact land that taps for a white. And whenever you cast an artifact or creature spell using mana produced by Barracks of the Thousand, create a white gnome creature. Just create a token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts and or creatures that you control. So whenever you use mana from this to cast an artifact or creature, you get a big boy equal to, with PT equal to the number of just about everything you control minus enchantments and lands and planeswalkers. So just an absolutely righteous magic card, dude. I don't care if it hasn't really done much in standard. It's even got like kind of the perfect decks. Simulacrum Synthesizer is more or less the card or the deck for this card. And that deck plays anywhere between a 0 to a 2 of this card, most often a 0, which is insane to me. It really ought to play more. So it's just not finding where it needs to go in standard, and that really bugs me because I think this card is very powerful even there. But in Commander, this is also extremely powerful. Pretty obviously. It's not too hard to get 5 untapped artifacts or creatures. And then you have a land for the rest of the game, just makes huge boys. I love this card. I think that it's absurdly strong and just needs to kind of find its spot. So I'm going to give it a 5.9, which may seem high to some and low to others, but I'm trying to kind of split the difference because I don't think I can be entirely objective on this card. I like it way too much. And it's more than just like I like it because I think it's okay and fun and does something cool. I actually think this card is very, very powerful. I'm biased towards it in that way. So if I had my druthers, I'd give this card like a 6.5 or something. So I'm actually tamping down my own, in objectivity here, my own subjectivity by giving it a 5.9. But I think some people might think that's too high. I just really, really like this card an awful lot, man. But we'll move on to Witch's Eye. This is from Theros. This is a single mana. That's some art, isn't it? It's a single mana for an artifact. It's an equipment that equips for 1. Equipped creature has 1 tap. Scry 1. It's pretty bad, right? That's fairly terrible. I would say, maybe if you need something to replace whatever it is, Shote or, whatever it is that equips for 0, on your, well, I guess you can't play certain decks anymore because they just got banned out of the format. But as I record this, at least, but this is awful. This is just awful. God, you still have to pay mana too to scry 1 with the guy. You tap him down. I mean, if it was one or the other, that'd be one thing. But no, yeah, it's both. That's really bad. 1.4, and the only reason it gets like an extra 0.4 of a point is because like maybe you need a 1-cost artifact. Maybe you're playing really, really cheap equipment in your deck, but there's probably other things you could be playing. Maybe you absolutely need to scry. There's probably better ways to scry, but maybe you need to scry, and your deck needs equipment. This is the narrowest possible window of decks. 1.1. This card's pretty bad. This card's just that bad. Elite Javelineer from Tempest is up next. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 2/2 soldier. It's a human soldier. And whenever it blocks, it deals 1 damage to an attacking creature. Not necessarily the guy it blocked, just any old attacking creature. And it's sort of a callback to Icatian Javelineers with some Mark Poole art here. This is not good. I'm just going to give this, I can't like justify it. Like, oh, I love Tempest. It doesn't matter. It's not good. So I'm going to give this a 1.3. It's better than that last card we looked at. It's probably not actually, but Skyward Eye Prophets is up next, originally printed in Conflux, and not a whole lot since then. 6 mana, 3, a green, a white, and a blue for a 3/3 human wizard with vigilance. Tap it to reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it into play. Otherwise, put it into your hand. 6 mana for a guy that draws a card. Sometimes ramps, It's like 6 mana for a 3/3 vigilance is just not great. Would it have broken things if this guy was a 4/5 or something? Like, even back then, and before we got to the level of creature power creep we're at now, it's still kind of like Come on, man. So I'm just going to give this dude like a 4. Right at a 4, you know? If he cost 4 mana and did this, we'd be talking a little bit more, but not even that much more, to be honest. We'll look at Pyroclasm next. Can we look at the Ice Age Pyroclasm, baby? Have we covered this card before? Now I can't remember. There's a guy out there who I need to acknowledge. I really do, because I haven't had time to talk to him yet. I've been trying to set aside time on the schedule to acknowledge the time he's been putting forth, but I've got a lot going on with Dustmorn Standard just starting and preview season just starting, you know, when he first started emailing me. But if you're the dude that has spreadsheet every single one of these so far, don't worry, I do see you trying to get in touch with me. And I do want to take a look at those spreadsheets pretty bad. I'm just trying to find time because I don't have much in my day most of the time. So I acknowledge what you've been doing and the pretty ridiculous sacrifice time-wise that it probably takes you to do such a thing. So I appreciate you doing that. It's pretty amazing. And here's to, more of it, I guess. It's pretty insane. It's a pretty crazy undertaking, but I'm glad you're doing it. So I guess you'll let me know. Long story short, if we've already done Pyroclasm, I feel like we have. But this just got reprinted into Dustmorn as I record this. And it's very good in Dustmorn Standard, especially as kind of a sideboard sweep. I'm going to have to just kind of pass through Pyroclasm because, again, I think we've already done it. But I'm not sure what I gave it last time, but I would have to give the card like a 5.5, right? Pyroclasm's a pretty good card. But Grave Titan. Ooh, Grave Titan is up next. Magic 2011. This is 6 mana, 4 and 2 black for a 6/6 giant with Death Touch. When it ETBs or attacks, put 2/2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. So that is 10 power and toughness on 3 guys when this ETBs. So you blink it, right? You reanimate it, you attack with it. It just gives you more power and toughness. This dude was just a mountain of potential value when he first came out. All the Titans are pretty well known at this point, and they all saw some amount of play, but in Standard, especially Grave Titan, may have seen the most play across any of the formats he's been involved in. Because, again, he puts out 3 bodies, and then if he ever actually gets to attack, then he puts out 2 more bodies. It's a burial. It really is, and that wasn't meant to be a joke, but I guess I'll take the pun. It's still a pretty good card, too. All things considered, Grave Titan's still all right. I'm surprised you can get one for 89 cents. Apparently, Murders at Karlov Manor Commander has one for $1. All the other ones are, way more expensive than that, so pick up that copy. But yeah, Grave Titan's good in simplified cubes and iconic cubes and old school cubes and cubes in general, but also still could see a little bit of play in Commander from time to time. Love me some Grave Titan. Gonna give him a 6.4. Totally serious. I think this just all the Titans are absurdly powerful, but especially this guy. He's among the best ways you can actually spend 6 mana in a game of Magic without cheating in some way. Mind Stone's up next. I feel like we've gotten this card 2 or 3 times, and I really love it. I geeked out about it the last time we saw it because I'm a huge fan of Mind Stone. Pygmy Troll is up next from Exodus and only Exodus. This is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 1/1 troll. For each creature that blocks it, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn, and you can regenerate it for a single green mana. Looks like a weird first ability for a 1/1, right? But you're supposed to put a bunch of auras and stuff on it, and then they try to double block it, but it'll get +1/+1. That is effectively a form of Rampage, right? It's just better than Rampage. Rampage is an ability where it's Rampage 1 in this instance. It would kind of be for each creature that blocks it beyond the first, it would get a +1/+1 or +2/+2 if it's Rampage 2. But in this case, it's just for each creature that blocks it, including the first. So if someone blocks it, it instantly becomes a 2/2, which is kind of neat. That's not too terrible, I guess, but if it gets double blocked, that's +2/+2. So it's actually kind of tough to gang up on the dude, but the real show here is the regenerate. 2 mana for a 1/1 regenerate. It's basically a green dust skeletons. In old school context, it is a green dust skeletons. And that's kind of a fine Magic card. I'm going to give you a 4.7, and the only reason you get that high is because regenerate is a very good ability. There's a reason they kind of stopped printing regenerate after a while. It's super annoying to have to deal with. It really, really is. But we'll move on to Youthful Valkyrie, printed in Kaldheim here. This is an uncommon worth $9. It's two mana, 1 and a white for a 1/3 angel with flying. Whenever another angel enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Valkyrie. Boy, they need to reprint this. I mean, obviously it's good in angel decks. And it's in maybe changeling decks, but it gets bigger. And that's it. You know what I mean? So it's not even that great in changelings, I guess. But in angels, yeah, the card is kind of absurd. As a 2-drop. There's just not a whole lot of 2-drop angels. Like this, Giada, Sarah, Avenger, but you can't drop it on turn 2. And like, there's just not that many good angels at the 2-drop slot unless you want to resort to changelings. So I can see why this is kind of expensive because, again, the angels deck kind of needs all the 2-drops that it can get. And this is a particularly good one, but $9 is unconscionable. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. Especially considering people aren't buying like 4 copies of it at a time. Like, demand's not that high, right? So people buy 1 copy of this at a time. $9. Just price tag is just far too overblown on this. But I'm gonna give Valkyrie a 4.9. It's really only good in the Angels deck, and even then, like 2 mana 5/7 a lot of times. That's pretty good. 2 mana 5/7 flyer. Shut up, Deb. That's great. But still takes a lot of work and mana to actually get your 2 mana 5/7 flyer. So I don't know, man. The price tag is ridiculous on this, but play it in your Angels deck if you can afford it, I guess. Branching Evolution up next from Jumpstart originally. This is 3 mana. That is really cool art, by the way. 2 and a green for an enchantment. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So, okay, it's one of these. I can see why it's had to have been like already reprinted 4 times. Pretty popular too. It's still a couple of bucks to own this card. Oh, yeah, the Modern Horizons 3 art is pretty cool too. Ixalan artwork, that's neat. But the Jumpstart artwork is still like, that's like the best that I see here easily. So yeah, neat card here, man. I believe this is the first time I'm really seeing this. That cat has like 2 tails. Neat. Everything has 2, whatever. I like that. But anyway, I'm just going to keep saying this is good, and then maybe a score will pop into my head. So like hardened scales, but the word twice that many is printed instead of plus an additional one. Is that really worth 3 times the cost of a hardened scales? Yes, it is, I would imagine, because anything that puts like 3 +1/+1 counters in a guy now puts 6. So yeah, that's good for all the +1/+1 counter decks in Commander, and I'm pretty sure there's a fair amount of them with a bunch of different commanders. So yeah, I'm going to give this a 6.5, and send me your angry letters. I'm pretty sure that's high enough, and maybe too high for some, but that looks like a really powerful Magic card to me if you set it up correctly, and that's the whole point of the card. We'll move on to Common Bond here. Only ever printed in Return to Ravnica. This is 3 mana, 1 a green and a white for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. You ever get a feeling of deja vu? This just does the same thing twice. So 2 +1/+1 counters. You can put them on the same guy. You can put them on different guys, whatever. For 3 mana. That's not good. That's not even a very good rate, actually, especially considering it's like difficult to cast for no reason. So I'll give it like a 2.3. Skrelv's Hive Baby is our final card of the day. This is 2 mana. 1 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. You get a 1/1 token with Toxic 1 that can't block every single turn. Corrupted, as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink, so that'll make up for some of the life lost, theoretically at least, So I always forget. I always completely forget about the corrupted ability on this, and I'm like, well, I can't attack with these guys yet, but I really should be attacking with the guys because they have lifelink, and they're not going to do anything aside from that anyway, so I might as well attack, you know what I'm saying. This card is good, but it too has struggled to really find its spot in Standard. It's not even, usually at least, in these like red-white or even mono-white tokens decks with Caretaker's Talent and stuff like that. You just don't really see it. And that would be like the deck for it, But I know some players play it, but in, MTGO League finishes, Challenge finishes, tournament results and stuff, you rarely see this card in those lists, unless it's in the board. But I still think that like White Bitter Blossom, effectively, is a pretty good card, man. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was, much more playable in Commander, where you have twice your starting life total. And Bitter Blossoms are just good. You know, token decks want a card for this cheap, just 2 mana, that puts a token into play every single turn. There's a lot of ways they can parlay that into value. So I'm going to give Skrelv's Hive a 6.5. I just think Bitter Blossom is a ridiculous Magic card, and I would probably give it like a 7 point something, because it makes flyers. But in this case, Skrelv's Hive is very close to it, and if you're working with Toxic, if you're working with poison counters at all, it gets that much better. So, and it's self-sustaining as well in terms of the poison counters. So yeah, it's good in Standard, or at least it should be better in Standard than it currently is seeing the play, And, it's got to be worth $2 for a reason, and that reason is probably largely Commander and just hype. I think some people just really like this card, and there's a reason. It's a good card. But that is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.